Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Lopez. I am a field biologist and the volunteer coordinator with Atlantic Marine Conservation Society. We wanted to start by thanking you all for tuning in with us today. So, before we dive into this presentation, I'd just like to start by acknowledging some of our sponsors and partners. These organizations are really essential players in helping us to do what we do here at AMCs. So, what is it that we do? Well, at AMCs, we are a group of dedicated individuals, and we've all come together to work to protect the marine environment. Our mission is to promote marine conservation through action, and we do that by responding to deceased marine mammals and sea turtles that wash up on our beaches. We investigate their cause of mortality. We perform wild population and health studies, and we also try to educate the public as much as possible about the challenges faced by our marine environment. So here at AMC's, we only have 6 full-time staff members. And as you can imagine, we wouldn't be able to do everything that we do with 6 people alone. So we rely on support from several other stakeholders to help us achieve our mission and do the work that we do. So these stakeholders include our volunteers, and they provide us with tremendous support in just about every aspect of what we do, from beach cleanups to necropsies, etc. We also work very closely with students, whether it be our student interns or students attending our educational programs. Um, Additionally, since all of the animals that we work with are federally protected species, we work very closely with several facets of government, including local, state, federal government, and the municipalities. And lastly, we heavily rely on the support of the public. Um, so while I'm relatively new to the stranding world, my boss has said many times that out of all the calls they've ever responded to, not once was a call made by a staff member. So one of the best ways that you can help us here at AMC's is simply by having our New York State Stranding hotline number in your phone. And I'll go over this phone number in a later slide. So now that we've discussed some of the work that AMC's does, I'd like to briefly review some background information about the different animals that we work with. So the first group that we respond to is sea turtles, and there are 7 different species of sea turtles found globally. We actually have 4 of those 7 species that can be found right here in New York. So the first species that we see in New York is the Atlantic green sea turtle, and this is actually the largest species of the hard-shelled sea turtles. These turtles are actually listed as threatened under the United States Endangered Species Act. The second species that we see is the loggerhead sea turtle, and as you can see from this picture, they have this reddish-orangish tint to their coloration. And similar to the green sea turtles, the loggerheads are also listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act. The third type of sea turtle we have in New York is the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle, and these guys actually have a heart-shaped carapace, which is the top part of their shell. Kemp's Ridleys are actually listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act. And then lastly, we have the leatherback sea turtles, and these are also listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act. So leatherbacks can get really big, about 5-6 feet, up to 1,500 pounds, and they have this soft leathery covering over their shell, along with these characteristic ridges throughout their carapace. So in addition to sea turtles, AMC's also responds to marine mammals, which can be broken up into 2 different groups. So the first group of marine mammals that we respond to are cetaceans, which includes whales, dolphins, and porpoises. So in New York, we actually see 24 different species of cetaceans, but on this slide I included some photos of the more commonly seen species here in New York. So on the left-hand side, we have our whales. The top left corner, we have the minke whale. Bottom left corner, we have the humpback whale. And then on the right side of the slide, we have our porpoises and dolphins. So in the top right corner, we have harbor porpoises. And in the bottom right corner, we have a short-beaked common dolphin. So as I said, these are just some of the species of cetaceans that are seen a little bit more frequently here in New York. In addition to cetaceans, the second group of marine mammals that we respond to is pinnipeds, which are seals. So we actually have 5 different species of seals that can be seen around New York. The first being the harbor seal, which is pictured here. So as you can see, these guys have a freckled-like appearance to their fur. and they can get to be about 5, 6 feet, 350 pounds, and we typically see these seals in our winter months. So the next species that we see in New York is the gray seal, and this is the second most common species of seal that we see here. So these seals are known for their silver to gray fur, and they also have this horse-like appearance to their head, as you can see in this photo. So these seals are a lot bigger. They can be up to about 7 feet, weigh up to 700 pounds, and we've actually started to see these seals year-round in New York. So, the next three species of seals that I'm going to talk about are Arctic species, which means that they prefer to live on or near the ice. So, we typically only see these species during our coldest months. So, the seal in this photo is a harp seal, and they have this cat like face. We typically only find yearlings out in our waters, which are seals that are aged between 6 months and 2 years old. But harp seals actually get their names from the coats they receive as an adult. So as you can see here, adults have this light fur and they have a black face and they also have this harp-shaped black saddle on their back. So the next type of seal we have in New York is the hooded seal, and they're not very commonly found here, but these are actually the largest seals that come into our waters. So hooded seals are named for this large elastic sac that extends from their noses to their forehead. This is only seen in males, actually, and this sac expands into a large balloon-like ball. And the purpose of this sac is to attract mates. So these seals can be up to about 8.5 feet long and weigh up to 775 pounds. And the last species of seal you can see in New York is the ring seal. However, these seals are very rare to see here. Our stranding records indicate that only 7 have been recovered in New York since the 1980s. So ring seals are actually the smallest and most common Arctic seal, and they only get to be about 4.5 feet long and weigh up to 150 pounds. So now that we've reviewed a brief background of some of the animals that AMC's responds to, I'd like to discuss some of the current issues and threats facing these animals. So in this photo here, we have a humpback whale, and it's feeding on a fish called menhaden or bunker. So in recent years, we've actually seen an increase in both menhaden and humpback whales in New York waters. And while humpback whales have become somewhat of a poster child for conservation, they also represent a very unique situation that's occurring in our waters right now. So there are currently 4 unusual mortality events open in the Northeast region. And an unusual mortality event, or a UME, is an increase in the number and frequency of animals washing up on beaches. And as the name implies, this is something that's rare and unusual. So AMC's staff are on the front lines of managing the UMEs, given our extensive history and experience dealing with these events. So the first 2 UMEs that we're dealing with are for minke whales and harbor and gray seals. And mortality investigations for these species have actually found biological factors such as disease processes contributing to their deaths. So the second 2 UMEs that are open in the Northeast are for humpback whales and North Atlantic right whales. And with these 2 UMEs, the necropsy examinations have actually found evidence of human interaction. So, human interaction is when there's evidence of human caused damage or injury to an animal. And it can include things like ingestion of marine debris, vessel strike, entanglement in fishing gear, things like that. So, that's what we've primarily seen with these last 2 UMEs. So, this map here shows some of the other obstacles that our marine life is dealing with. So, this is a map of the Northeast coastline, and the green and red areas along the coastline represent density of shipping traffic. So the areas that are colored red have higher density of shipping traffic. And in addition to this, we have the areas of the boxes that are congregated together, and those represent areas that have been leased or proposed areas for leasing of offshore wind development. Um, but the challenge here is that a lot of the animals we're dealing with are migratory, so they're using these coastlines as their migratory corridors. So really what you can see from this image here is that these animals are navigating a very busy highway. So this map here gives a more zoomed in picture of what it looks like in New York, and it shows all of the stranded marine mammals and sea turtles that AMC's has responded to since our inception in 2017. So we have the green triangles as sea turtles, the red squares are pinnipeds, and the blue circles are cetaceans. So, first of all, you can see that animals are sort of stranding all over Long Island, all over the coastline. But also, you can get a better picture of some of the challenges faced by the marine life here. So, we have these blue horizontal lines, which represent shipping lanes. And then again, we have the boxed in areas representing offshore wind development. So, once again, it's really just a picture here of a marine environment filled with obstacles that our marine life must compete with. So, the last threat to marine life that I'd like to discuss is marine debris. And this case here represents a prime example of some of the dangers imposed by marine debris on the marine life. So, in this photo, we have one of our former biologists examining a deceased leatherback sea turtle. And during the necropsy, she actually found a 15-gallon trash bag in its GI tract, along with several other smaller pieces of plastic. So, what happens when an animal ingests plastic? Well, we can see a couple things. First of all, if it's a hard piece of plastic, that animal then faces the risks of punctures or lacerations while it's within their organs. They may also experience blockages, they could suffocate on the items they've consumed. Or, which is this is something we see quite often, the animal faces the risk of starvation. So when an animal ingests plastic, their stomachs often trick their brains into thinking that they're full, and consequently they don't eat the nutritious food that they need to survive. So it can be a really big problem for many different reasons. So kind of wrapping up the doom and gloom spiel, and moving on to what is AMC's doing to help. So, as I previously mentioned, one of the things that we do at AMC's is respond to deceased marine mammals and sea turtles that wash up on our beaches. So, in this photo, we have a deceased humpback whale that washed up in the Rockaways in April of 2017. And this actually represents a lot of the other things that we do during a necropsy. So, this particular animal attracted a lot of attention from the public, and a lot of people gathered around on the beach with questions. They wanted to know, what is this animal? What's it doing here? What happened to it? All of the questions that you or I might have if we were to see a dead whale on the beach. So, one of the things that we do now is we try to make every necropsy an opportunity to engage the public and really talk to them about what we do at AMC's, what these animals are, the fact that they're here, some of the threats they face, and then we can turn that conversation into what they as individuals can do to help and to get involved. So, another thing that we're doing at AMC's is training and preparing for critical events. So, this is our 26-foot trailer that we're outfitting to be a mobile response unit, and we're building the infrastructure to be able to spin up with our trailer in a critical event, like an oil spill, to facilitate a mass mobilized response. And these are some of the images of what it looks like inside, so you can really get an idea of the space we're working with and how easily we could be responding to multiple animals at the same time in a critical event. Another thing that AMC's is involved in is conducting wild population studies for marine mammals and sea turtles along the northeast coast of the United States. So, when doing this, we look at a hierarchy of questions. First we look at what types of animals are here. Then we look at how many of them we're seeing. What are they doing? How many of them are staying here, etc. And we can then use the answers to these questions to inform conservation measures. In addition to the wild population studies, AMC's is involved in health assessments and tagging projects. So, with the health assessments, we're primarily focusing on gray and harbor seals. And during these assessments, biological samples are collected from the animals to look at the health status of the wild seals. And we're also looking at things like disease surveillance and contaminant loads. So during these projects, some of the pups that we're working with are outfitted with satellite tags to tell us where they're migrating, how they're using the environment, and what areas might be critical habitats for these animals that need protection. And the animal you see here is another example of one of our tagging projects that was carried out in collaboration with some of our colleagues. So this turtle is a loggerhead sea turtle. She was named Tammy, and she was struck by a vessel in New Jersey, which resulted in some damage to her carapace. So, when she was discovered, she was admitted to a rehabilitation facility called Sea Turtle Recovery, which is located in New Jersey. And upon her release, we teamed up with Sea Turtle Recovery to outfit her with a satellite tag in order to track her movements and monitor her use of the marine environment. And we were actually able to see that over the next few months, Tammy migrated south to Florida, which is the exact behavior that we were hoping to see post rehabilitation. So, as I mentioned earlier, AMC's is responsible for responding to any sea turtles that get entangled in New York waters. So, this is a picture of a leatherback sea turtle that got entangled in a gill net, and our necropsy program coordinator, Kimberly Durham, on the right hand side, she's seen working along with the Coast Guard to help disentangle this animal. And lastly, we participate in a lot of education and outreach events. So, these pictures here are of some of our beach cleanups, and we really love these events because they're great opportunities to not only make a positive impact on the marine environment by picking up trash, but also to engage the public and spread the message about the importance of marine conservation through action. So we always bring reusable bags to these events, and we record the number and the type of debris collected. So every time we do one of these cleanups, the people that participate are always shocked to see how much you can find in a short amount of time. And that's exactly the reaction that we want. So these beach cleanups are a really great opportunity to start the dialogue with members of the public, which we really think is what will end up leading to change. So to wrap things up here, what are some ways that you can help? So there are lots of things that you can do to help both marine life and our organization. First of all, you can just be mindful of the beaches. Keep our beaches clean. Take your trash with you. Make every visit to the beach an opportunity to do a quick cleanup. You also want to make sure to just be respectful of the animals and give them their space. So you need to stay at least 50 yards or 150 feet away from both marine mammals and sea turtles that you see in the water or on the beaches. And this is actually something that's mandated by law. So it's really important for your safety and for theirs just to give them their space when you see them. Another thing that you can do is report any sightings of marine mammals and sea turtles to our organization using our website, which is amcs.org. And last but not least, which I think is one of the most important things that you can do, is have our New York State Stranding hotline number saved in your phone. And you can call this number to report any sick, injured, or deceased marine mammals or sea turtles that you may find. So we want to say thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself. You can email me at volunteers@amcs.org, or you can visit our website, which is www.amcs.org. Thank you again for joining us today. We hope to see you soon.